Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Panachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai, Gonitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Canto 10, Chapter 47, and the text is 48. so we can chant responsibly. Ka utsarhita santyaktum utamashloka samyedam anchatopi yasa erir argana chyapate kvachit ka utsaheta sanyaktum utamashloka samvedam anichatopi yasa srir angana chyavate kvachit ka utsaheta sanyaktum utamashloka samvedam anchatopi yasa srir argana chyavate kvachit. Please chant. Ka utsaheta sankyaktum utamashloka samvidam anchato sirasyasya srir angana chayavate kvachit ka utsaheta samtyaktum utamashloka samvidam anichato pidyasya srid angana chyavate kvachit. The word for word. Kaha, who, utsaheta, can hear, samyaktum, give up, utamashloka, with Lord Krishna, samvidam, intimate talks, anchata, not wanted, api, even though, yasya, whose, Shri, the supreme goddess of fortune, Angat, the body, Na chavate, does not let go of, Kvachit, ever. And the translation, for text 48, is as follows. Who can bear to give up intimate talks with Lord Uttamashloka? Although he shows no interest in her, Goddess Shri never moves from her place on his chest. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Gadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Shah Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapsa Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Romapada Swami iti namine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll read the translation once again for a refresh. Who can bear to give up intimate talks with Lord Uttama Shloka? Although he shows no interest in her, Goddess Shri never moves from her place on his chest. So I'm drawing from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, and he highlights this particular Gopi's statement more from the internal mood that has been expressed. So this is how he puts it, quoting, as though the Gopi is expressing her thought. Though a greedy man may not attain his desired object, he does not give up the desire for the object. Who can bear to give up the experience of Krishna's beauty and sweetness? So that was, Krishna was called Uttama Shloka in this particular verse. Close quote. A very similar sentiment is actually expressed by Lord Chaitanya in his conversation to Srila Sanatana Goswami. This is from Madhya Leela, the 21st chapter, text 102. Lord Chaitanya, he doesn't ask the same rhetorical question that the gopis are asking, or this particular gopi is asking, because her question had been, who can bear to give up the experience of Krishna's beauty and sweetness? So it's a rhetorical question, because naturally no one can. But Lord Chaitanya, in expressing a very similar sentiment in his conversation with Sanatana Goswami, he says, "My dear Sanatana, the sweet, attractive, transcendental form of Krishna is so nice. Just try to understand it. Even a fractional understanding of Krishna's beauty can merge all the three worlds in the ocean of love. He attracts all the living entities within those three worlds." So that's Lord Chaitanya, also giving a reflection on the beauty of Lord Krishna. So I thought we can take this particular statement of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami and actually apply it to this particular verse, because if we try to understand the sweet, attractive, transcendental form of Lord Krishna, we can look through the eyes of the various devotees who had some experience of that great beauty and sweetness of Krishna. So looking at Uddhava, he describes the form of Lord Krishna, and this is his description when he's talking to Vidura. This is from much earlier on in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 3rd canto, the 2nd chapter. Uddhava puts Krishna's beauty and sweetness this way. So Uddhava is in his particular mood, and this is how he comprehends the beauty and sweetness of Krishna. The Lord appeared in this mortal world by his internal potency, Yoga Maya. He came in his eternal form, which is just suitable for his pastimes. These pastimes were wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their own opulence including the Lord himself in his form as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Thus, Sri Krishna's transcendental body is the ornament of all ornaments. So that's his particular understanding, Uddhava's, of Krishna's beauty and his transcendental form. Considers it the ornament of all ornaments. So, if one takes into account, like I find I have to look at jewelry. So I recall when I was growing up, my mother had an inherited, and it had come down through the generations, like a super long strand of like a golden necklace, but it was very intricate. It had all sorts of little discs on it, but it was down to the ground, and over the years it had been cut up and given to different family members through the generations. So she still had a substantial portion. It came down to the waist, and I would say that was an ornament of all ornaments in one sense, from the point of view that it had been made in this incredible length that it had passed through several hundreds of years. So, but Krishna, his actual form is considered the ornament of all ornaments. There's nothing more beautiful, more complete, more perfect. So Srila Prabhupada's explanation of the excellence of Lord Krishna is resting on his statement. So Srila Prabhupada looks at what Uddhava has said, something of this transcendental form of Lord Krishna being the ornament of all ornaments, and he makes a statement, and this is Srila Prabhupada's statement, that the personality of Godhead is more excellent than all other living beings within all the universes in the material world. So the most excellent living being. His excellence, and that was Srila Prabhupada's statement. So by way of explaining what it is, this excellence of Lord Krishna, is that no one can surpass him, and no one's equal to him. And how you can measure that is that there's different categories by which you can evaluate and make comparisons. And those categories are in terms of wealth, in terms of strength, in terms of fame, in terms of beauty, and knowledge. So in each of those categories, no one can surpass Lord Krishna. And renunciation, I should add, also in the category of renunciation. And this is despite the fact that he appeared as a human being, because there's an understanding that human beings, are limited in all respects. In fact, each human being has a very small field of activity. So, limited fame, limited knowledge, limited beauty, limited renunciation. But in Lord Krishna's case, he's appearing as a human being, and yet he surpasses every other being in all the universes. So, in spite of his appearing as a human being, no one was equal to him in any respect. In any of the 6 different categories by which one can evaluate or make comparisons. So the beauty of Lord Krishna comes to the fore at the time of Lord Balaram throwing the demon Denikasura into the biggest palm tree. So I'm going to go a little bit into the pastime to try and illustrate something of this beauty of Lord Krishna. So Lord Balaram threw Denikasura's body into the biggest palm tree, so one can't imagine the strength, because if you're throwing an object, but it's a very heavy object, it's easier to throw it down. But Lord Balaram throws Denakasura upwards into the very top of a palm tree. So one can't imagine what strength is there. So he caused, because of that weight on that particular palm tree, it caused all the other palm trees to start buckling over. And here's a description. It appeared as if a great hurricane was passing through the forest, and all the trees were falling down one after another. So that was Lord Balaram's strength, an illustration, a factual illustration. So this is from Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writing that particular description. So after the demon had been thrown into the trees, all the friends and associates of Denakasura, they immediately assembled and began to attack Balaram and Lord Krishna, and with great force. So they were determined to retaliate and avenge the death of their friend Denakasura. So here's how Krishna and Balaram respond. But Krishna and Balaram caught hold of the asses by the hind legs and exactly in the same way wheeled them around. So usually when something is coming at one with great force, it's difficult to withstand such a force. But in their particular case, they had such strength they were actually able to grab the hind legs even though this force was coming at them. Thus, they killed all of them and threw them into the palm trees. So again, this incredible exhibition of strength. So because of the dead bodies of the asses, there was a panoramic scene. So this is the beauty part. It appeared as if clouds of various colors were assembled in the trees. So even something that is could appear messy and gory too, dead bodies in the top of palm trees of asses, it actually appeared beautiful. It was as though there were clouds at the top of palm trees. So everything that Krishna and Balaram come to touch, it becomes beautiful. So the description of the return of Lord Krishna and Balaram to Vraja is such that the cowherd boys, his faithful followers, and they were the ones who began to sing and chant the glories of Lord Krishna and Balaram. And Srila Prabhupada states it this way, quoting, when the glories of Lord Krishna, as we've just heard, are vibrated, both the speaker and the hearer are purified and become pious. So this is what we can understand, because Srila Prabhupada comments on it. Just hearing about the particular pastime is purifying to the person speaking and the person hearing. Now his beauty comes to the fore in this particular pastime. So here's the description. Lord Krishna's hair, powdered with the dust raised by the cows, was decorated with a peacock feather and lotus flower and forest flowers. The Lord glanced charmingly and smiled beautifully, playing upon his flute while his companions chanted his glories. So it's a very festive, exquisite scene. The idea that there's dust on Krishna's beautiful face, and there's beautiful sound coming from the flute, and there's the beautiful singing of the cowherd boys, and they there's just been this completion of eliminating a whole slew of very demoniac entities. There's a great beauty in the scene. So with their lotus-like eyes, and here's the part that gives an understanding of what's been seen. With their lotus-like eyes, the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Lord Mukunda, and thus they gave up the distress they had felt during the day because of separation from him. The young Vrindavan ladies cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission. So just by hearing how the gopis, the young cowherd ladies, are responding to Krishna gives one insight into the effect he has by his beauty. It produces a shyness, because as mentioned, they're bashful. They cast sidelong glances, so, you don't look directly, but it's kind of, attracted, but sort of looking from the side. And there's also laughter, because there's some delight in seeing this beautiful scene. And of course, there's a submissive mood, understanding the greatness of Lord Krishna and Balaram. And then the response is that Sri Krishna completely accepted these glances as a proper offering of respect. That's how he understood it and accepted it. And in this way, he entered the cowherd village. So I'm taking it a little bit further, Lord Chaitanya's statement that one should just try to understand something of the beautiful form of Lord Krishna. So hence I'm elucidating the matter by bringing up this particular pastime, because I think it's a beautiful illustration. Now, Lord Chaitanya's statement that the sweet, attractive, transcendental form of Lord Krishna is so nice, and that one tries to understand it, can also be assisted by considering Srila Prabhupada's description of this incident. So I'm going to read Srila Prabhupada's description. Here's his description. All the gopis remained very morose on account of Krishna's absence. All day they were thinking of Krishna in the forest, or of him herding cows in the pasture. When they saw Krishna returning, all their anxieties were immediately relieved, and they began to look at his face, the way drones hover over the honey of the lotus flower. When Krishna entered the village, the young gopis smiled and laughed. Krishna, while playing his flute, enjoyed the beautiful smiling faces of the gopis. So Srila Prabhupada puts it in such a simple, simple, simple way. It's just a beautiful exchange, very exquisite. And that particular analogy that's there, it's of drones enjoying honey or hovering around some particular lotus flowers. So that is the comparison that's been made of the gopis viewing Krishna's beautiful face, Srila Prabhupada. And that comes actually from a purport in the 10th canto, 13th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the great beauty and sweetness of Lord Krishna, which this particular gopi, or I'm drawing on how Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is commenting on this verse, as opposed to talking about the exchanges, which is what this gopi is mentioning. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is actually going more to the internal mood, which is one of thinking of the beauty of Krishna's form. So this great beauty and sweetness of Lord Krishna, which this gopi is expressing, has been difficult to give up, is also expressed by Akrura prior to his arrival in Vrindavan. So again, I'm drawing on devotees who've actually had very direct experience of Krishna's beauty, and so Akrura is one. So this is how Akrura puts it. So he's anticipating coming to see Krishna's beautiful form. So this is what he says. Today, I shall certainly see him, the goal and spiritual master of the great souls. Seeing him brings jubilation to all who have eyes, for he is the true beauty of the universe. Indeed, his personal form is the shelter desired by the goddess of fortune. Now, all the dawns of my life have become auspicious. So that's Uddhava. Just expressing that anybody whose eyes come to rest on the form, the beautiful transcendental form of Lord Krishna, they feel incredible jubilation. And he's seeing, soon he's going to be in that position. So again, in following Lord Chaitanya's tenet to just try to understand the sweet, transcendental, attractive form of Lord Krishna, one can consider Srila Vishwanath's insight into Akura's understanding of this form. So this is the thought of Akura as per Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He puts it this way: today my eyes will relish a veritable festival of bliss. I will see Lord Krishna, whose form is the reservoir of the conjugal attraction of the rasa dance and aspired for by the goddess of fortune, who forever resides on Vishnu's chest. The mornings following many nights have brought auspiciousness for me. So there's so much reference to the goddess of fortune in terms of seeing Lord Krishna's form. There's always this reference going back to the goddess of fortune residing on his chest. And Srila Vishwanath's expression or a little bit expansion on Akura's anticipation on having his eyes come to see the beautiful transcendental form of Lord Krishna is that he's going to be experiencing a festival of bliss. So that's how it is, seeing the most beautiful entity in all the worlds. It's a festival. So Akura does come to see Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. And perhaps one can get a fractional understanding of the beauty of Lord Krishna, which is what Lord Chaitanya is encouraging. So Lord Chaitanya had stated that Krishna's beauty can submerge the three worlds in the ocean of love. And in the case of Akura, there's the following description. So this is actually what happens at the time. Quote, "The joy of seeing the Supreme Lord flooded Akura's eyes with tears and decorated his limbs with eruptions of ecstasy. He felt such eagerness that he could not speak or present himself." So that's actually what transpired at the moment of actually seeing Lord Krishna. So that's given in the 38th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. So the beauty of Lord Krishna that he experienced is described as follows. So here's what he actually saw. It's described in Srimad Bhagavatam. This that produced these incredible eruptions of ecstasy when he saw. So here's the description of what he saw. Akura then saw Krishna and Balaram in the village of Vraja going to milk the cows. Krishna wore yellow garments, Balaram blue, and their eyes resembled autumnal lotuses. One of those two mighty armed youths, the shelters of the goddess of fortune, had a dark blue complexion, and the other was white. With their fine-featured faces, they were the most beautiful of all persons. As they walked with the gait of young elephants, glancing about with compassionate smiles, those two exalted personalities beautified the cow pasture with the impressions of their feet, which bore the mark of the flag, lightning bolt, elephant goad, and lotus. The two lords, whose pastimes are most magnanimous and attractive, were ornamented with jeweled necklaces and flower garlands, anointed with auspicious fragrant substances, freshly bathed, and dressed in spotless raiment. They were the primeval supreme personalities, the masters and original causes of the universe, who had, for the welfare of the earth, now descended. Their distinct forms of Keshava and Balaram, O King Parikshit, because it's Sukadev Goswami speaking this description, they resemble two gold-bedecked mountains, one of emerald and the other of silver, as with their effulgences they dispelled the sky's darkness in all directions. So that's what Akura was actually seeing in front of him, and hence his eruptions of ecstasy. So the sweetness of Krishna comes to the also to be displayed for subsequent to this Akura seeing them, he jumped down from his chariot and fell at the feet of Krishna and Balaram like a rod. And Lord Krishna recognized him and this is how it's put, drew him close with his hand, which bears the sign of the chariot wheel, and then embraced him. So that was Krishna's response, and you see the sweetness. Akura is flinging himself out of the chariot, throwing himself onto the ground in his ecstatic state, and when he gets up, the first response of Krishna, and it illustrates something of the sweetness, he takes his one hand and he pulls Akura's body close to him. So this way of meeting Krishna in great eagerness is called perfection. That's Nectar of Diversion. So Srila Prabhupada's summary study in Nectar of Diversion, or Nectar of Diversion, states that Krishna meets his devotee with peacock feather on his head, with manakata jewels on his chest, and with his ever-enchanting smile. So that's how Krishna meets his devotee. His restless eyes and his delicate body. Now, Uddhava, his meeting of Krishna is called steadiness. I'd referred to Uddhava earlier, which is defined as the time when a devotee is ultimately situated in association with Krishna. So there's two ways of meeting Krishna, being in a very steady mood and yes. And it could be said that both Akura and Uddhava have this steady position in their meeting with Krishna. In the case of Akura, this is Srila Prabhupada talking in Nectar of Diversion, he would talk with Krishna about the activities of the Kuru dynasty, very steady devotion. You can very easily do it. In the case of Uddhava, the disciple of Brahaspati, he would always massage Krishna's lotus feet while kneeling before him. So these are indications of meeting in that very steady position, being able to continuously perform a particular service to Lord Krishna. So we've tried to understand this, the attractive transcendental form of Lord Krishna and his beauty through the eyes of the gopis and those of Uddhava and Akura. So although he's the supreme personality of Godhead and is therefore not partial to anyone, he has special attraction to his devotees who worship his name in love and affection. And Srila Prabhupada's writing in Nectar of Diversion exemplifies this quality of Lord Krishna, particularly this one of his partiality to his devotees. And this is how Srila Prabhupada puts it. One devotee expresses his feelings. My dear Lord, if you had not appeared on this planet, then the asuras, demons, and atheists would have surely created havoc against the activities of the devotees. I cannot imagine the magnitude of such devastation prevented by your presence. So, so Lord Chaitanya's comment on the transcendental form of Lord Krishna, it's expanded, because he subsequently says the transcendental form of Lord Krishna is shown to the world by Lord Krishna's internal spiritual energy, which is a transformation of pure goodness. The jewel-like form is the most confidential treasure of the devotees. This form is manifest from Krishna's eternal pastimes. So I'm going to end there to cover this particular verse from today. If there's any thoughts on this particular subject matter. Oh, there's a microphone.
Hare Krishna. So we see that Krishna, he, you know, you say he's not partial, but he's always fighting on the side of the demigods. And the demigods aren't necessarily pure devotees. And, but he always comes forward in the form of Vaman. He got Indra's kingdom back. And so many instances where Krishna was on the side of the demigods. And it certainly appears that he's partial towards the demigods and against the demons. What do you say about that?
So there's the comment that Lord Krishna shows partiality to the demigods, but they perhaps are not in a state of complete purity, but he's showing partiality, especially when it's visible when they're fighting against the demons. The microphone. Sorry, Subal, can you give the microphone? It's being broadcast. So.
This was a question by Parikshit Maharaj after the 6th canto was finished. The 7th canto was about to start. So he asked him, you know, he asked Shukadeva Goswami, how is it? It appears like that. And then that 1st chapter, 7th canto, is about the impartiality of the Lord. And he describes there that, you know, it appears like, but actually Krishna is very impartial. And he gave he said, because the demigods are in the mode of goodness, and they're predominantly in the mode of goodness, therefore they flourish. And it's not necessarily him, you know, they're flourishing on their own because they're in the mode of goodness. Whereas the demons are in the mode of ignorance and in the mode of passion. And after some time, they get the reaction of being in the mode of goodness and the mode of passion. And then he gave another example that you see, when Shishupal was offending Krishna, Krishna was very, you know, patient. But then finally he did kill him. You know the story, how his mother had made Krishna promise that even though her son offends him 100 times, he should just forgive him, and he did it. He waited 100 times, and on the 101st time, he cut off his head. And everybody in the assembly saw that this effulgent light, the soul of Shishupal, came out and merged into the body of Krishna. So Shukadeva Goswami uses that as an example to show that here you see, you know, even though he's a demon, he gets the same result as great yogis who've meditated. You know, they can't even reach that result, but yet, you know, this demon is reaching that result. So he gave that as an example to say, see, Krishna's impartial, he's equal to everyone.
Well, that's a very nice question and explanation in response to the question. Thank you very much. Pima Prabhu, it's very kind of you to illustrate particularly this point that's highlighted that Lord Krishna is impartial, although he is particularly disposed towards the devotion of his devotees. But there is impartiality in terms of still allowing for the liberation of even a demoniac entity. So yes, that shows extreme impartiality. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Can I add some more on that one? I would say that I think Lord has established a system in the universe. Whoever follows that system, they'll get the actual results of that system. So somebody is in mode of ignorant, whatever activity he does, there will be results for that. If somebody is in mode of goodness, and whatever activity he does, he gets the results accordingly. So in all cases, he is always impartial. But because the person performs the activities based on what more he has got, according to that, Krishna gives the results. So if it is goodness, then he gets the best result. If it is ignorant, then he gets the bad result. So Krishna, you cannot blame Krishna for anything, because he is always innocent, he is always like a judge. He is giving results to the activities the individual souls perform. So in this case, as mentioned that the demons get liberated just because he was thinking of Krishna all the time. And then because he was thinking of Krishna, like Kansa or Shishupal, because they were thinking, the Krishna thought that, oh, because he's thinking about me, so that's why he gets the best results. But if somebody is opposed, they are not thinking about Krishna, then he cannot get it. Even though he's a demon or anybody, it doesn't matter. So always, that's why Prabhupada's name is Krishna consciousness. You always think about Krishna, and you get the best results, either this way or that way. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, there's transformation of consciousness, even if it's not visible in a demoniac entity, just by the consistent focus on Lord Krishna, because that's a reason for the extra favorable disposition towards devotees, that they actually are in a single pointed way focusing on Krishna. So even if it's done by demoniac entities that aren't deliberately doing so with the intention of attaining Krishna or serving him or increasing their devotion to him, they're taking one aspect that's of importance and making him central in their thinking. So they get that benefit, yes.
I was just going to also thinking of what Bhima Prabhu explained or brought out, that also in one sense the demigods, although not pure in their devotion, have mixed, they still, when it comes down to the wire, they look up to Krishna and they approach Krishna for help. And everybody have that opportunity. Prabhupada explains that Krishna's mercy is available to, he have no discrimination. And he compares it to the sun. So if we decide to be away from the sun, in a cave, like that, it's our choice. But the sun is there for everybody. So Krishna's mercy is there. I was going to also ask you about the point that you brought on from the Nectar of Devotion about describing that, I think you say Uddhava's devotion is defined as steady. And to try to understand this steady, I'm thinking in relationship to this uninterrupted quality of, pure devotion, unmotivated and uninterrupted, ahaitukya pratiyata. So is it like that, that is, when it's steady, is that it doesn't have an interruption, that is consistent throughout, it's always unmotivated and it's always uninterrupted, it's always pure. So regardless of what they do, it's always that in that consistent state of pureness. Is that?
Yes. Yes. That's at least the definition of Srila Prabhupada. And the illustrations that we used is highlighting a particular action that's consistently performed. So it's almost like a consistent service to Lord Krishna by that particular individual. So in the case of Akura, consistently speaking about the Kuru dynasty, that's his service to Lord Krishna. In terms of Uddhava, consistently massaging his lotus feet in a kneeling position. So that's what Srila Prabhupada's highlighting. So indeed, the particular service too that's performed by that individual without interruption. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.